on June 12, 1995, in Vilnius, Lithuania. The last execution in our free country's history took place. A 33-year-old man stood out from the 6 Lithuanians executed before him, many of whom were alcoholics or had serious psychological problems. No, this man was calculating, intelligent, and held much of the country's law enforcement in his hand. A journalist recalled his final interview. He hoped until the last moment that someone would save him. Usually, when people come to terms with their sentences, especially execution by shooting, they stop lying. But he kept insisting he was innocent, claiming his enemies had set him up. This execution was not just the end of one man's reign of terror. It was the Lithuanians' nation stand against organized crime, against the unchecked violence of gangs that had become increasingly brazen. It was a blow so powerful that it marked the end of the wild 90s. Who was the man whose final words were, "Is that all?" Who was Boris Dekanidze, and why did justice catch up with him so quickly? Boris Dekanidze was born on December 13, 1962, in Vilnius, Lithuania, to a family of Georgian Jewish immigrants. He was a stateless person. Neither Lithuania nor Georgia wanted to grant him citizenship. In 1987, he actively joined the Vilnius Brigade, an organized crime group. That same year, he moved abroad with his family, living in the US, West Germany, and Poland, where he continued his criminal activities. Much of these activities revolved around extortions and fuel smuggling. By the late 80s and early 90s, he returned to Lithuania and took control of the Vilnius Brigade. After Lithuania regained independence, organized crime ran rampant without any control, and Boris was at the center of it all. Under his leadership, the Vilnius Brigade dominated the streets, from extortion to murder. Newspapers carried warnings, "Vilnius belongs to us." This showed just how untouchable and powerful the gangsters felt. But Dekanidze was not just another thug. He became the ultimate symbol of lawlessness in this decade. Although this video will primarily focus on Dekanidze himself, don't forget to subscribe. An upcoming video will cover the Vilnius Brigade in more detail. One of Boris' cruelest acts became legendary. Dekanidze wasn't happy with his soup at the restaurant. It wasn't hot enough, so he went to the kitchen, grabbed the chef by the hair, and dunked his head into a pot of boiling soup. Later, he brought money to the hospital and told the victim to keep quiet. Journalist Ainis Gurevičius recalled, even the FBI had a file on Dekanidze. Former Prosecutor General Artūras Paulauskas once recounted how, out of curiosity, he requested information about Dekanidze during a visit. Within 15 minutes, he was handed a thick stack of documents, some revealing details even he hadn't known. Dekanidze was involved in countless criminal schemes, from theft to large-scale fuel frauds. Like any smart leader, he usually avoided getting his own hands dirty, making it difficult for law enforcement to pin anything on him. But his reign wasn't forever. His downfall began with the murder of journalist Vitas Lingys, a crime that shocked the entire country and became a turning point in Lithuania's battle against organized crime. Born on August 13, 1960s, in Mažeikiai, Vitas Lingys was no ordinary journalist. He was a truth seeker, a man unafraid to expose the darks of Lithuania's organized crime world. After graduating with a degree in journalism from Vilnius University in 1983, he quickly made a name for himself as an investigative reporter. In 1989, Lithuania was undergoing major changes. Along with his colleagues, Lingys co-founded the independent daily newspaper Respublika. It wasn't just another publication, it was a platform through which Lingys sought to expose the country's most dangerous criminals. His work threatened to uncover the vast network of organized crime and their corrupt allies, including Boris Dekanidze himself. Lingys' articles directly challenged Dekanidze's empire, revealing the power dynamics, illegal deals, and brutal violence that kept the system standing. As Lingys' influence grew, Dekanidze realized the journalist was a dangerous enemy. If Lingys continued his investigation, the carefully built criminal network could crumble. According to witness statements and court testimony, Dekanidze personally ordered Lingi's murder. The killing was meant to send a clear message. No one, not law enforcement, not the media, not anyone, was safe from his reach. The only way to maintain his empire was through fear and silence. The hit was assigned to Igor Akhremov, an enforcer from the Vilnius Brigade. He was known as ruthless and efficient killer who never hesitated to carry out an order. On the morning of June 26, 1993, near his home in Vilnius, Lingys was attacked. As he approached his car, Akhremov and his accomplices moved in. They fired 3 shots, 2 into his back and 1 into his head. The cold-blooded execution left no chance for survival. The murder was swift, merciless, and executed with precision, without any hesitation. The killers quickly fled, but it didn't take long for authorities to track them down. Reports indicate that the 2 other men were stationed nearby as backups. Lingys had strong friends, both in media and in the legal system, and his death became the focal point of a large-scale investigation. Despite Dekanidze's initial confidence, his empire began to crumble under the weight of all these accusations. It's already too dangerous. A line has been crossed. Before, one could at least explain the motive behind the murder, or believe that staying out of trouble means staying alive. Today, it's a journalist. Tomorrow, a prosecutor. The day after, a judge or a member of the parliament. These chilling words were spoken 31 years ago by Artūras Paulauskas. According to him, it was immediately clear that the motive behind the murder was the mafia attempts to crush the freedom of the democratic press. During the trial, Vyacheslav Slavickis and Igor Akhremov testified against Dekanidze, confirming that he had ordered the journalist's execution. Akhremov, the triggerman who shot Lingys 3 times, provided detailed testimony about the circumstances of the murder. Boris Dekanidze has orchestrated the assassination from the Latvian city of Jūrmala. He personally provided all the necessary details and even sent the murder weapon. His orders were explicit. The journalist must be shot with my guns. When asked how he found the courage to kill a man who had done him no harm, Akhremov replied, "I understand that I committed a terrible crime, but I was afraid. I should have shot Dekanidze, not Lingys." The entire trial process painted a picture of a crime empire falling apart. It became clear that Dekanidze's power was slipping. He had to resort to threats to convince his own men to carry out this hit. The choice was simple. It's Lingys or it's you. This moment signaled just how fractured the Vilnius Brigade had become. In court, Boris Dekanidze denied any connections to the Vilnius Brigade, dismissing it as nothing more than operational rumors. Despite being the mastermind behind numerous crimes, he had no fear of presenting his own version of events. According to Dekanidze, he had been warned about a financial and political group operating in Lithuania that allegedly sought to expel Jewish businessmen from the country. This was his attempt to shift the narrative away from his crime empire. In the final display of arrogance, the crime boss cynically mocked the general prosecutor, calling him an actor rather than a competitive lawyer. He claimed the prosecution was merely performing for the public, trying to convince them that Lingys killers were receiving their deserved punishment. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. Boris Dekanidze had once ruled Lithuania's underworld with fear and violence, but in the end, his own arrogance and brutality sealed his fate. The prosecutors asked for the death penalty. Know that from the other side, I will be interested to watch how once the passion settles, the Lithuanian nation will get acquaintance with the real details of this criminal case, which my father holds, and how they will assess the role of the general prosecutor, Boris Dekanidze said in his final court speech. However, after nearly 2 months of trial in Lithuania, justice prevailed. The Supreme Court sentenced Dekanidze to death by shooting, Igor Akhremov to life imprisonment, Vyacheslav Slavickis to 40 years of imprisonment, and Boris Bobyshenko to 13 years and 3 months of incarceration. This was the most significant blow to organized crime in Lithuania, after which one of the most influential criminal groups, the Vilnius Brigade, was destroyed. In 1994, Dekanidze was sentenced to death for ordering the murder of journalist Lingys, as well as for leading an organized criminal group, extortion, and illegal possession of firearms. However, the case became even more dramatic due to the involvement of Dekanidze's father, Notorious, who did everything to save his son. He attempted bribery and even threatened to blow up Ignalina's nuclear power plant. Yes, I told you that the 90s in Lithuania were very wild. Can you imagine such desperation? Boris Dekanidze claimed he had 200 armed men ready to storm the prison. Therefore, Boris was often moved to various other detention facilities in order to prevent the brigade members from predicting where he would be. But this time, the court did not give in. The death sentence for Boris Dekanidze was carried out. On July 12, 1995, Boris Dekanidze was executed by shooting. However, the details of this execution remains a secret to this day. Official records are sealed for 75 years, and the location of the execution is unknown. What we do know is that in Lithuania, executions were carried out in remote forested areas, where the condemned were shot and their bodies were returned to the prison for investigation. Well, at least Boris could see nature one last time. So why such secrecy? According to the Ministry of Interior, the disclosure of information could endanger those who carried out the execution, or even their descendants. After all, it's organized crime, and if we know anything about organized crime, is that it loves revenge. Therefore, the information can only be made public when most of the people involved are dead, or everyone has forgotten about this event. However, the secrecy only fueled rumors and conspiracy theories. Some even claim that Dekanidze was never shot and is still alive, but officials insist that the execution did indeed take place, and Dekanidze's story ended that day in 1995. Perhaps Dekanidze's father was telling the truth. Perhaps he really did have some serious threat to the whole country, and the only way to resolve it was to stage his son's death. Maybe some of our officials were bribed once again to shoot an innocent prisoner and report, yes, this body is indeed Dekanidze's. Or maybe there is no conspiracy theory at all, just the law which finally started to take serious action. Dekanidze's execution marked the end of an era. Soon after, Lithuania abolished the death penalty, and the Vilnius Brigade faded into history. Dekanidze's legacy remains not only as a criminal, but also as a symbol of chaos, impunity, and power struggle of the 90s. Vito Lingys' legacy didn't end with his death. His courage paved the way for the future investigative journalists, proving that truth is stronger than fear. Today, a journalism award named after him honors those who, like him, are not afraid to expose corruption, no matter the consequences. Dekanidze considered himself not just a gangster. He called himself a philosopher, a man who wanted to create order in a chaotic world. But in the end, his crimes caught up with him, and ironically, he created order by becoming the figure against whom everybody united. What do you think? Should the details of Dekanidze's execution remain a secret, or is it time for it to come out? Leave your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any more Shadows of Lithuania stories. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and I'll see you next time.